I'm actually pleasantly surprised at how the polling results have mirrored the debate results in this election. I'm a little bit cynical and jaded. Well, okay, I'm very cynical and jaded. And I would have thought that the conservatives would come away thinking that Mitt Romney won, and the liberals would come away thinking that Barack Obama won, and the undecided voters in the middle that everybody's struggling so hard for are just watching American Idol and not paying attention at all. But really, that hasn't been borne out. After the clobbering that was the first debate, Mitt Romney surged in the polls. The vice presidential debate was a lot less one-sided. Now, I didn't see how anybody could watch that and not think that Joe Biden was a complete jackass. In fact, I thought that he looked a lot like Tim Burton's version of the Joker, played by Jack Nicholson.
Wait till they get a load of me.
Now, I'm probably not even really in Uncle Joe's target audience, so even if he happens to be listening, I don't think he's very concerned about my opinion. But after that performance, things really evened out a lot. The way that the debates have helped to shape public opinion is not going unnoticed in the Obama White House. In fact, right now, I guarantee you, Barack Obama is sitting with a team drilling because he is not going to take the second debate lying down. Barack Obama is going to attack Mitt Romney with everything he has. Now, this could go a couple of different ways. It could backfire. If he's on the attack for the entire second debate, even his most ardent supporters are going to get sick of hearing about it, and it's going to come off too strong. But let's not forget that Barack Obama can be an energetic and exciting public speaker. If the Barack Obama of the 2008 campaign shows up for the next debate, Mitt Romney could be in some serious trouble. To me, Mitt Romney is really an empty suit personified. He's almost like a Dilbert cartoon come to life. Do you remember how Barack Obama has that bombastic speaking style where he sounds like an evangelical preacher? If he can find a way to fall into that mode without pushing it too hard, Mitt Romney doesn't have an effective counterattack. He's going to sound like the boring, dry, lifeless politician that he, well, is. In fact, if I were a betting man, or if you put a gun to my head, I would probably say that Barack Obama is gonna get reelected. I tend to be pretty pessimistic, but it's more than just that. It feels right to me. That's what's in my gut. And I think deep down inside, all of us, even the most ardent Romney supporters, know that he's not the kind of conservative leader that we need to push us back toward real constitutional government. Paul Ryan definitely seems like a step in the right direction, but I think at the end of the day, a Romney administration would be exactly the same kind of compromise, big government, quote-unquote conservative administration that we all promised ourselves we'd never tolerate again after the Bush years. So I'm sure a lot of you are probably thinking, well, why the hell should I support Mitt Romney at all? In fact, I know some people who aren't going to. They have decided to either vote for Gary Johnson or just stay home on Election Day. I totally sympathize with that point of view, but I think that it's wrong. So let me give you a little bit of my personal history. I was less of a free-thinking libertarian type and more of a mainline Republican, until the Republicans captured both houses of Congress and the presidency at the same time. I genuinely believed that the Republican Party, with that kind of power, would change the country for the better. I thought they would whittle down the size of the bureaucracy, reform and start to privatize the entitlement programs, and genuinely put us back on track to becoming a constitutional republic again. Memories. I was so young and naive, so foolish. Kind of like a little kid who really thinks he can grow up and be Batman. In fact, I'll be completely honest with you, I was that kid. When they would go around the class and ask everybody what they wanted to be when they grew up, some kids would say they wanted to be police officers, some would say they wanted to be firemen. Doctor was a popular choice. I always wanted to be Batman, and it took me years to let go. And it took me years to let go of the fact that the Republican Party isn't really on our side, too. Now, the Bush administration did some stuff that was kind of okay, so I don't want to completely throw them under the bus, but let's face it, at the end of the day, they added to the deficit, expanded entitlement programs, created new bureaucracies, and did some pretty creepy stuff where civil liberties are concerned. Remember the Patriot Act? Remember how we were all kind of tricked into fighting for that? I don't know, man, not so much. In retrospect, I think that was a big mistake. And really, I don't see much evidence that a Romney administration would be any better at all. In fact, they might even be worse. I don't think that Mitt Romney is an ideological person. I don't think that he gets conservatism philosophically, and I don't think that he would be a great president. But let me tell you what I'm going to do. On election day, I'm going to wake up early, I'm going to get my ass in a voting booth, and I'm going to push the little touchscreen button for Mitt Romney anyway. And I really hope that I can convince you to do the same thing. As much as it hurts, as painful as it is. I think we all know that we're in a truck that's about to drive off a cliff. And I think we also all know that Mitt Romney isn't the guy who's going to turn us around in the other direction. The best that we can hope for from him is that he's going to take his foot off the accelerator ever so slightly. So, why support him at all? Well, I've wrestled with it, I'm not going to lie to you, but I think I have some good reasons. So bear with me a little bit and let's talk it over. Now, I know I'm not going to convince anybody to not vote for Barack Obama. To a certain extent, I'm really preaching to the choir here, and I accept that. But I think the choir needs a little bit of preaching at this point. Point 1. Let's use a different metaphor. Barack Obama represents severe hemorrhaging from a major artery. The patient is going to die very soon. Mitt Romney is definitely not going to bind and cauterize the wound, but he may be able to take us back to just really severe bleeding. And like a guy who's bleeding to death, in this situation, every little bit counts, even if it is a little tiny bit. Point 2. Gary Johnson will lose, I promise. I love underdogs, I love crazy stuff that happens completely out of left field, but let's face it, the next president of the United States is not going to be Gary Johnson. And if you think that Barack Obama is bad now, just wait until his second term when he doesn't have to worry about being reelected and feels that he genuinely has a mandate from the people to keep destroying the country and rebuilding it in his own crazy leftist image. Now, I'm sure that you've heard both of those points before, and you may well have rejected them because you want to vote your conscience. You want to be able to sit in the car on the way home or on the way to work and feel good about the way you voted. But I'm going to tell you something that is going to be difficult for you to hear. Brace yourself, okay? You're thinking like a liberal. Because really, the way you feel doesn't mean anything. We have to make progress towards moving the country back toward constitutional government. And even though that isn't Mitt Romney's goal, we can use him to further our own agenda. Take a moment and think about how we got where we are today. This stuff didn't happen overnight. The extra-constitutional constructs that are strangling the United States didn't appear overnight. They were built up incrementally, very slowly over a long period of election cycles. If there's any hope whatsoever in preserving the Union as it exists today, we have to be incremental thinkers. This isn't the time to turn into Cartman and start saying,
"Screw you guys, I'm going home."
And if you're thinking of literally staying home on election day, or voting for a guy with no chance whatsoever of winning, that's what you're doing. What you're doing is withdrawing from the process, and that isn't the answer. Now, I'm not saying that electing Mitt Romney is going to put the country back on the path to constitutional government. But here's my final point, and it's a big important one. Your civic duty doesn't end on election day. After we elect Mitt Romney, if we do, you can't just go to sleep and stop paying attention. We have to stay engaged. You tell me you don't trust Mitt Romney? Well, good. Mitt Romney is a politician. You can't trust him. You can't turn your back on him for 1 second. Don't you remember? The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. I honestly believe that we are where we are today because of that essential lack of vigilance. We became very tribal about our politics. We aggressively defended the Republicans because we just figured they were the good guys. Well, the Bush administration opened my eyes to how wrong I was about that. And now I'm engaged, and I'm not going to stop being engaged when the election is over, even if we win. No, I made a mistake just now. That's wrong. It's not we. It's not we who win. It's the politicians who win. And they're not we. The politicians can't be counted on to be on our side, even if it's somebody that you like and trust. After the election, that's when you got to start paying really close attention to what they do. Not just the things that make headlines. What are they doing behind the scenes? And then that's when you start your letter writing campaigns. That's when you start bombarding them with emails and questions and going to town hall meetings. Because that's how you really can steer and direct things. If you just elect these guys and then turn your back on them, they're only going to serve themselves and not the people. And then there's one more step in the plan. If you can hear me, if you're within the sound of my voice, and you're a sane, rational human being, you need to run for office. Now, obviously, you're not going to run right out and run for president or run for the Senate, but start to poke around your local community. Could you run for the school board? Could you run for mayor? Could you run for state senator? You must remember that in the original blueprint for our system of government, we were supposed to have citizen legislators, and we have gotten far away from that today. We basically have a political class. I would almost go as far as to say that we have an aristocracy. It's exactly what the Founding Fathers didn't want. The same group of people have been running things for a very long time, and we got to do what we can to stop them. And ultimately that means throwing them out and taking their place. Thanks again for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Twitter. There's going to be a link in the description. And ride on!